established, I had with me in the room Maury Creighton, Andy Olderman, Tom Parkins, Mike Pratt, and Town Administrator Greg Fetchfield. Dean indicated he was going to be late, and Peter indicated he's out of town. Okay. So the first item on the agenda is to just kind of briefly discuss the September 19th all boards meeting, successes and opportunities for improvement and next steps. Do you need the town Wi-Fi password that I gave you incorrectly last time?
Sure, that'd be helpful. Well,
I don't want to say it aloud.
didn't work the last time, and the piece of paper went through the laundry machine, so it's been completely destroyed.
Or at the other paper would come good.
Thank you.
On a piece of paper that's barely legible at this point. Okay. So, somebody want to start with their thoughts? Andy.
Sure, I'll bite. I guess not being at all expert in whatever, Essex's town finances might be. It appears to be that no matter what kind of fix we may come up with this year, it's going to be a recurring problem. Certainly would be eased by a change in the population of students, more from Manchester versus Essex, to kind of turn the tide a bit. But I worry that it seems somehow unsustainable. And I don't know what the fix is. I mean, it seems like Essex has to come up with a lot of money or a sober realization that they've got to change the very structure of how they disperse their revenue.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the biggest one is like, they have to pick a lane, and what I mean is the Essex Elementary, right? In other words, if they want that really bad, which I understand, then you gotta step up from the money side. But if you wanna go hard frugal on the money side, that's fine, but then, right, probably no Essex Elementary, because, right, that would save a ton of money, right?
Right.
That would save a ton of money from CapEx and operational costs and, right?
Yeah.
And the room, my understanding is the room's here. Right?
I think it's tight.
Well, there was the notion of like a K through two,
Yeah,
and then
you could jump.
combining from 3 up.
Yeah. That to me that's the epic trade-off that they need to figure out, right?
Right.
Because if they want to go hard frugal and say no to the Essex Elementary, I think that helps. I mean, it might not be the silver bullet, but it helps tremendously on the school district budget, right? In terms of the one-off, because what would that be? I don't know, 50 mil, or some huge number. But then also the ongoing, right? The utility bills and the, repairing the building.
And the extra principal, extra.
Right, like, so,
Yeah.
That's a game changer. If you-
Combine that element.
right, so,
it is a game changer.
pick a road.
In total, they, if it comes to like, if there were room in Manchester to house all the elementary school kids in Essex, including kindergarten up.
There is, that's my understanding, right?
Well, I don't know. I wasn't sure if I heard that, and I may not have been listening the way you were. So, I suspect as much as they're in a bit of a financial hole, they still may be holding on to our neighborhood elementary school in some way or other. And at some point I heard the K through 2 option. So maybe like they maintain K through 2 in Essex, and then they merge together 4 through 3 through 5, 4 and 5, I guess. It's what, 3 through 5.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Three come-
I guess, I don't know the full history, I haven't been here for, my whole life, but my understanding is historically Essex used to send their students to
First it was Gloucester.
Rockford and Hamilton and
So this is the
so, no, I guess where I'm going is, so even if they do have to get in a bus and get shipped over here, like. That's actually not new territory for them, in the sense that they have this history of. You see what I'm like, sending their kids,
I don't know.
Well, the school,
Certainly the schools
the
will-
school certainly dates back to, fifties, sixties.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was just high school they were,
Thanks.
yeah, that makes sense.
I think that is,
middle, right, yeah.
It was probably K through 6 originally, yes.
Right, yeah,
That would save a ton of money, right?
So I wasn't at the meeting and so I'm not able really to comment on the meeting, but what Mike said makes perfect sense. We've got two choices, two paths to go.
Yeah.
That's simple to recognize. Is the town divided 50-50? Is there no political will to make a decision one way or the other? Because they have to be having the same conversation.
I don't know if we've heard their sentiment though.
Not specifically on
Right, the splitting.
that, like pick a lane thing.
yeah.
They just. That whole meeting, they just kept saying, we've cut everything to the bone, cut everything to the bone, got more money, you know what I mean, and like.
Yeah, well, what you're saying is pretty clear.
Well, yeah, they saw the path as Manchester come back to the table and redo the regional agreement.
Pay for some of our
I'll
costs.
set it up and you guys pay.
Yeah, but that's
So,
irrational.
right, and I think both the select board and the finance committee just were saying no to that. And voiced her own separate opinion. That was the only one I heard.
Because we pointed out several times mathematically that when you do the numbers, right? Like there's one number for what it costs MERSD per student, it's like,
23.
sure, 23.
3,000.
But when you do the math separately, you take the total dollars Manchester pays in, divide by number of students, the total dollars Essex put in, divide by number of students.
It's $4,000.
Six.
Six.
Six,
I was gonna
yeah.
say 4 or 5.
It was like 23,595 versus 19,060, something like that.
Are they disputing that math?
You can't dispute the
I know.
math, the math is the
So,
math, you
yeah.
know, and.
It's because Manchester's enrollment has declined by 82 students since 2020, and Essex has gone up by 13. So,
But it's also because the EQV helps them. Not a ton, but it.
but their EQV is increasing more rapidly than ours now, so that's not gonna be in their favor.
I think so.
Yeah, this past year, they were up like 154%, we were up 136% or something.
But I think we're
So-
starting at a much higher base, so.
Oh, yeah, we're 4 times the base or 3 times the base, yeah.
Whatever,
still-
the point is, it's ironic that they immediately jump to, let's open the regional agreement, let's relook at the formula, and it's like, well, just so you know, the way the formula is working right now, you're getting a little discount of.
Overall, yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, because, as we pointed out, I mean, we were on the other side of that hurt, several years ago, where we were feeling the pain of a higher percentage. And so I guess I would say, the formula appears to be maybe a little too sensitive to those.
But it is
elections.
averaged over 3 years.
I get it, yeah.
Can I point out something else which is ironic? So they specifically brought up how they had separate Prop 2.5 overrides, right? And one was specifically for the bill for them to send the Essex kids to Essex Tech.
Yeah.
And that one passed no problem.
Yeah.
And here's what I'm saying is ironic. I'm pretty sure, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, when Essex Tech gives you an invoice, right, a town,
Per
for your
student.
student, there's no EQV, it's
Right.
just, right?
That's a
It's
It's the same bill for us as it is for Essex, as it is for Danvers, as it is for PVD, as it is for any of the 20 odd towns. So my point is.
Yeah.
They're clearly okay with that, right? There's no like. That's.
Well, part of that is they don't have any say in that budget, so they feel they don't have control of it, whereas with our regional agreement, the towns have some say in it. And I think that may just create a different philosophy.
Yeah, I have no problem with them kind of advocating and wanting to provide input. I'm going more at, they're jumping hard on the formula thing. And I'm just saying the formula thing just factually, mathematically benefits them. That's all I'm saying.
Hi, Dean, that wasn't too bad.
Not too bad. Well, 6 o'clock games.
Yeah, so I don't know, it'll be interesting to see what the school committee does. Because I think that they heard from both towns. And we're basically saying, keep the same program, you figure out how to save money if you can. If they can come in at the 2.5%, we won't complain, but if that reduces the program, then we will complain.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see.
I think the basic problem, if, when you peel away the thought of, okay, let's modify the formula, that might give us a year or two. Let's go to more variable costs and fixed costs, that might buy you a year. At the end of the day, it's about affordability here. And there is a fundamental difference, and I think this whole meeting, the purpose was to basically listen and try to understand where everybody is and get everybody in the same room. And I think that meeting accomplished that.
Yep.
Essex came out of the box very hard, saying, this is our position, this is where we are. You know, Brendan did his job. But at the end of the day, we've got another 4 months until this thing, or 3 months until this thing's pinned down. And, you know, I think we clearly heard that we want a good school system, and it's very hard to run that at 1.8%. It's not sustainable. So it's going to get challenging here, ultimately.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't think of too many ways you sneak around this. I mean, you can forego it a little bit, but we're gonna be right back at this next year and right back at
Well,
the year after. I mean,
They have to be willing to pay the cost of the school and support an override, if that's what it
Right,
takes.
right.
There's no magic bullet in that 2.5%.
So the other thing that I think it's worth thinking about here is, where is all of this coming from? You know, is this a really, really vocal minority working? Is it really the sentiment of the whole town? And I think we think about the same as we look at our town. You know, are the comments coming from the majority, a vocal minority? Is it real? Is it not? And I think that sort of, I think if we individually think about that, that may give us sort of the reason to plow through this budget season and just keep doing what we think is right for the school district and see where it goes. I mean,
I think part of the problem is that you have some tight-fisted people on their board of selectmen and some tight-fisted people on their finance committee.
Mhm.
So there was not the support from those two bodies for the override. So it was doomed to fail. And so I'm not sure it's the people in town as much as the people in town following
right.
the leadership, which is problematic.
And I think there's nothing like questioning the leadership when you end up with a super town meeting and it doesn't go your way.
Right.
That's where the reality sits in and says, all right, where are we gonna send our kids to school?
What was the turnout roughly for their 2.5 over?
I don't remember.
500-600?
Do you remember? Greg?
Sounds.
I thought I remember between 500 to 600, and it was like a 55 to 45.
It was pretty tight. It might have been tighter than that, but yeah.
Right, my point is, it wasn't 70-30 or something.
No. It
Uh,
was tight. At least looked tight to me.
Right.
As far as numbers.
so I guess I'm just saying, like, that tells me, like, let's call it 50-50 then, just for the sake of argument. So, you know, 50-50 in terms of people who showed up, right? Half are like, well, I'm saying I'm not giving more money. No way. So the question is that 500 people or whatever it was that showed up, is that representative?
I know they're just following along with other people, but you know,
I mean, the gap is a big one. You know, I mean, their position in this meeting was, there's a big differential there. You know, we're not talking about half a percentage point here. We're starting from a point of some work.
My takeaway was that, you know, if they're gonna be looking at this formula, we're gonna have to look at it too. If it's a textbook cookie cutter formula that's uniform through all the municipalities that have this situation, and you just plug in the values, then I think there's not, you know, there's not much you can do. But if there is a lot of variance in the parameters, like, oh, they take valuation at 20% versus this town takes it at 25%, and it, you know, there's gonna be a lot of horse trading.
Yeah, I don't know if the state has a template, because they have to be approved by the state. And I don't know if the state has a template. Do you know that, Greg?
I don't, we can try to find that.
Yeah, I know that there was a big to-do in one town where they wanted to have their formula strictly based on enrollment. And the state said no. You need to include equalized valuations to some
Some measurement of ability to.
extent.
Did they care about population or not?
I didn't see anything referencing, I don't know why population was included, but the interesting thing is the percents for population and enrollment between the two towns are basically identical. So there's no, that doesn't change anything. The percents on the non-instructional and the instructional are almost the same.
Right. I think
For
the
each town.
population variables in there, it contributes to sort of to the ability to pay.
Why?
If you have a town with a growing population, they figure there's more tax base there relative to the size of the enrollment.
Well,
I mean, if you've got a town with an equalized value of X, and let's say you have 4,000, population of 6,000 for easy numbers. And you've got an enrollment of 850 students, and 850 students stays put, but the population goes up to 8,000. I would think that would contribute toward ability to pay.
As far as median
Or,
income?
to take it to its extreme, if every family in Manchester sent their kids to private school, does that mean we should pay zero? Like,
Yeah.
obviously not.
Right.
Right, but if you plug that in,
That's another way to look at it.
right, if you plug that in, you know, Essex will probably be paying, I don't know, 70, you'd be paying 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the result of their override vote was 507 against, 388 for.
That's a bigger
Oh,
turnout.
so it's bigger
Likewise.
difference than
It's like a 900 turn.
and a bigger discrepancy than I remember. Yeah.
388 to 507.
So that's 900 out of, what are they, 3,000 people? So 2,000 voters.
Think, for some reason, I might have seen 1,800 voters. Does it tell you what the turnout was?
Well, there's 1,800 for an election. With seats, I think it's like that.
Okay. No, but I was wondering what their total
Let's, let's say they got close to 50% turnout, right?
percent voted was 31%.
Yes.
2,900 registered voters.
so the other thing about the template is, like, we know the enrollment changes on a 3-year average.
Yep.
But do they update the valuations and the population?
That's at the three, everything's a
Every
3-year
3
average,
years,
but the valuations are done every 2 years. So that it's the same valuation for 2 years in a row.
Right.
And the population is based on the federal census, so it changes every 10 years. Yeah,
Those are all
Yeah.
reasonable. I
Yeah.
just, I
Right,
suspect that, you know, we're subsidizing, you know, quite a bit, and the big telltale is in the percent of budget, how
right.
43% of your budget, I mean, I don't know too many towns that are under 50%.
Right.
And the per student costs, which we were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
so
a big-
so I'm not adverse to looking at the support. I kind of think it's gonna favor the fact that we are subsidizing more than our share. But again, we were that meeting was, yeah, we were very far apart, and the only common ground I could see is what Andy was saying, is we got a campaign to increase enrollment. You know, because you get that number up and everything changes, yeah.
And again, I don't know how feasible this is, but you know, I thought, I could be wrong, that there was good appetite for some kind of, you know, external consultant, you know, some kind of review.
Not an audit. expenditure.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's just be clear, like, when we hear audit, like, I'm not talking, you know, the regular accounting
No,
audit that they
right.
get, I'm talking like, I'll use my McKinsey,
Operational.
BCG, you know, one of those types. Not that cost, but one of those types that comes in,
Comparabilities with other towns and,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
other, right, compared to Lincoln Sudbury and Masco and whatever, other Hamilton Wenham and just, right?
Could you subject the towns to some sort of arbitration?
Not under the agreement. No, under the agreement, you go to a super town meeting if the budget's not passed. And at the super town meeting, if Manchester carries a vote, which one might think they might because they have more voters, but one doesn't know. And the budget was higher than what Essex had approved, they have to reduce their town budget by that amount. They have to pay the bill. So they either have to take the several $100,000 out of their town budget, or they have to go back to the townspeople for an override.
But that's something we're trying to avoid.
I don't
We
know.
don't want to set up.
Well, we were this past year,
Yeah.
and I think, you know, as we talked about it, seems like, okay, that's where it goes, that's where it goes, but I think, you know, just recognizing that we need to maintain, you know, quality of the school district. We can't subject
Hatfields and
to,
McCoys.
what's that?
Yeah,
The Hatfields and McCoys.
I think one question though is, and we sort of assume that based on population, Manchester supports a strong school system. If we came to a super vote, do we think Manchester as a whole town, the whole population would support this?
Well, especially, and then it comes into turnout, right? So
right,
if our turnout was low and their turnout was high,
right.
you know, right?
It's all about who shows up.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly,
So it's hard to know.
which is,
It's not a guarantee.
and I mean, I've run this in the past, but if you think about the number of families who have kids in the school system and you add 3 years prior and 3 years out. So you essentially say we have 12 grades of kids in the school system. Plus we have 3 that are anticipating coming.
Yeah.
And we have 3 that are in college or somewhere that are looking favorably on their experience. When you, and again, this data may be a year or two old, but when you add up all those families, it's about a quarter to a third of Manchester's population. So it's not everybody.
Right.
So there may be a group in Manchester who says, I'm living on a fixed income and I've supported the school for 30 years, I'm done with that. So
Yeah.
I'm
you don't
not
know.
sure it's a total check the box on the super. meeting. My sense is it would, but may not.
You don't know. Okay. Are we done with this?
Just a question of the audit. Is that something that you assume the school would receive
Yeah.
rather than the towns?
Well, what do you think?
I'm comfortable with the school. doing it.
Yeah.
They have to participate very closely, and all they have to do that.
Yeah.
So
It makes sense unless there was.
I think we should, you know, be engaged. and
I was gonna say, I'd hope we have
a
some input
steering committee of some sort.
Right.
that
Yeah.
Oversees the work.
into the selection.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I kind of feel with consultants that they listen too much to the people for whom they're doing the study
Exactly.
and sometimes lose sight of being creative and thinking outside the box. So that's, you know, my concern is there needs to be some town influence somehow. So that it's not just the schools getting the result they were looking for. This is basically.
Right.
I think, I'm not, you know, questioning the ethics of the consultants or anything, it's just the way it works.
It's like, you know,
They
it's like-
come, they
it's like-
receive.
it's like paying a ratings agency. Right? They have every incentive to give you AAA because you're paying the money, right?
Right.
So one question, this was probably touchy, is last year, there was a lot of discussion, particularly, I think, from the Essex FinCom about wanting very specific data from the school about enrollment and other things like that. And I think it would be helpful if Manchester had a position on that. And what I mean by that is, as you've heard me say this till I'm blue in the face, the school stays in their lane, we stay in our lanes. And I think supporting that, because I think when it gets into like the end of the meeting the other night, that is not a winnable, it's like the death spiral, you don't wanna go there.
Do
So
you
I think-
have the pre-enrollment number? Because Essex FinCom had it before their meeting. Have you heard it? The estimated for October 23. Oh, okay, because Essex had it. They used that in their, and Ben Buttrick said he had it. So I was just curious, and there, apparently it's switching a little bit. Where their enrollment, it's gonna be slanted a little more towards us. Having to pay more.
Finds heavily against. them.
Right, yeah, I don't think it's a big swing, I think it's a 0.7
It's like 1.7% or something.
or 0.7, I think,
Really, really
0.7,
minor,
yeah.
So Maury, I personally see both sides of that, right? So I see the side of the school district, which is like, oh my God, these people are firing 50 requests a week, like this is ludicrous, I'm gonna have to hire bodies just to answer their questions, right? So that's one side. But the other side is, I think within a reasonable, whatever the reasonable volume is or reasonable nature of requests, I think, they should be entitled to ask some questions and get some data.
And
I don't know how you determine a happy medium, but I think there should be a happy medium.
we do have a right to ask for
Yeah.
a year-end financial account.
Yeah.
Which I'm
But
not
I
sure we
think,
ever
but I
received.
think when we get into November and December and January, and we're starting to critique the size of English AP versus
Right.
bio AP, and whether one teacher should be here, one teacher should be there. The dialogue spirals to a
Right.
place where it's no longer really a dialogue. I mean, it's just chaos.
Well, and that's what I was kind of reacting to the long dialogue from, I think it was Katie, where she was basically saying, telling the towns that we need to tell her exactly
Yeah.
what to spend. And that's not our job. Our job is to tell them what our goal is, and then they figure out how to get to it.
I mean, this is anecdotal for sure, but I always tell the story like, I've sent requests to Greg and Angie a couple of times, not a ton. And when I send requests, I get the information back in relatively short order. It's very simple, right?
Yeah.
It's no, why do you need this? How are you gonna present it? Right? It's just, right? Okay. And then I've had experiences myself, with the district where I'm trying to ask questions. I'm actually trying to be helpful. This is like on the bond and the credit rate, right?
Mhm.
I'm actually not asking about how many kids in English or chemistry. I'm trying to help, help them, gauge the whole, how much cash you need for this credit rating, what are your bond advisors telling you? And I get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I can see, the point of
Yeah.
Essex FinCom, and, now, is it too much? Sure, they're probably firing way too many questions, too many, but again, there needs to be a happy middle ground there.
Definitely. I mean, I think the school committee was a little overwhelmed by that last year. And part of it is experience and other stuff, but
Well, and I think they were gonna have a subcommittee this year on looking at policies, it's looking at more in-depth school programs, which. Not us. Okay, are we finished with that item? Or does anybody have anything else to say on that? Okay. Next item, we had kind of targeted for this week this meeting was new staffing requests, the compensation study, and I don't know where you stand on any of that, Greg.
Sure, so, we don't have the compensation.
I figured you didn't, because you hadn't sent it to us.
What I do is leave it there. It's, we're dependent on the communities that we're using as comparable systems to.
Oh, okay,
It's always the
Yeah.
challenge. And when you say, well, okay, we've got enough, but we didn't get everybody. So that's a discussion I'm having with the consultants who are pulling this together. So I'm hopeful that we will have just a preliminary report for you at your next meeting for sure. So we can talk about some preliminary ideas on staff.
Yeah, that would be good, yeah.
So the requests that the departments would like to advance. The harbor master. Looking for deputy harbor master. So, hopefully we have some part-time deputies who do some work during the summer.
So there's nobody helping buying with any of the administrative stuff, is that accurate?
Basically, very minimal few hours of admin time.
And this is a full-time position across.
He would request a full-time.
And he is likely to retire in like 3 years or something like that, is that accurate?
Yes.
The clock is ticking.
Yeah, that's what I thought he told me he was 62. He retired at 62.
So that's one request. Fire department does have a request for a deputy fire chief.
And I guess I would be somewhat resistant to that for this year because we've added so many firefighters over the last 3 years and we have a new chief and it seems to me there needs to be a little more time to figure out whether it's really needed.
And an option that might be
Yeah.
worth discussing is pursuing a safer grant, if you remember. Safer grant, yeah. I was afraid you might have responded that way, but anyway. It might be worth looking at again.
And it would just be for a deputy fire chief.
Well, so potentially a couple more, but because we have a number of retirements in the next 3-4 years,
Okay,
maybe those retirees will not be replaced.
I thought of the best metaphor for the safer grant the other night. It's like telling someone 3 years ago to do a 3-1 arm and don't worry about it because interest rates will never go up.
yeah,
And not all of a sudden it's waiting.
See the big short.
Would it make any sense to look at promoting from the people that we have to one of the firefighters to a deputy?
they just did
Well-
promotions.
So if you do that, then do you backfill?
Yeah. Then you're still adding staff.
So I guess it would be.
I guess to Dean's point, what if no, like, in other words, can you promote someone to deputy chief, but operationally, they still like are, you know, doing the function of a quote unquote regular firefighter.
They just have more responsibility.
I don't think that works.
So that's, we had that model with the captain.
Yeah.
Versus lieutenant. But the captain had the same, you know, one on, one off, one on. Sort of worked that same schedule, and it really, it was hard to justify that extra captain pay, to tell you the truth. Based on that, working the same schedule.
So now we have a lieutenant, but we have a lieutenant on every shift now, right?
Yes.
Okay,
So each,
and there were promotions because lieutenants left or?
yes,
more shifts.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, we want, yes.
Okay, okay. I just remember promotions.
So, right, so right now we have the four lieutenants,
Four
one
lieutenants,
for each shift. And you have, essentially, you have 4 on each shift. Obviously, there's lead times, so you don't always have 4 on them.
What's your feeling of the deputy?
I have a sort of go slow approach. I think it is coming. I think you can justify it. And I don't think we have to rush into it.
Find the right opportunity.
What is the number, how many, we've added, how many full-time firefighters in the?
4 in the past 3 years.
Yeah, people from 12 to 16.
It's a lot,
Percentage terms, right?
yeah.
Well, I think it's also particular when you look at that column that says call versus career.
Oh, for the other towns.
Yeah, and when you think about the towns that are career versus, I think it's called, maybe I have that term wrong. But it's, the towns that are career are 4 times our size and bigger. I mean, we and 1 or 2 Cohasseters are real outliers
Yeah,
in this
Cohasset.
equation. And I think we need to take breath, think about
Well, and, you know, one of the things that I've been most pleased with in the past month and a half is just seeing the signs, like, and this is anecdotal and I'm getting it secondhand, but I've heard good numbers of people.
A good number have inquired. At this point, I think we only have 2, maybe a third. Actually commit to taking the class.
Okay,
That's
but
better than what
that's,
we were.
that's 3 more than 0, and it's just, you know, what is frustrating me, I don't wanna go back in history, but like, you gotta try to do something, right? Like, if you don't even try to do something, you're never gonna accomplish something, and this is a try,
I
and so
agree.
even if it produces, you
Yes.
know.
Well, it was interesting, that we heard from, through Essex meeting last week was that of their, I don't know how many calls they had.
22.
They said,
22.
they said like 35 call in theory.
But only,
Okay.
Only 6
Eight
of
of them
those,
eight to
there was like 6 of them show up for 85% of the calls.
6 or 8.
Yeah.
Or some-
Right.
Maybe it's 8, but then
Yeah.
some,
So 6 of them are about to retire.
the majority of them are gonna be
Yeah.
retiring in a few
Yeah.
years, yeah,
So they're definitely nervous about the future of their call.
right, they're exposed.
okay, what
So
else?
anyway, so that's a discussion.
Okay,
to be
yeah.
had.
We have to think about the safer grant.
The safer grants 4 years. For
3 years.
3 years,
Yes,
okay,
3 years, 100%, and then you pick it up 100%
yeah,
after that.
like
It's-
this.
it's
Oh, so
pretty
it is a cliff.
It is a
It's,
cliff.
it's not, okay,
Okay.
okay.
So it's because
That's your 3-year arm.
Was that?
Yeah, exactly, that's the 3-1.
Of all the areas where we might be able to combine services with Essex, I would think fire would be the most attractive as far as,
When they decide they can't do their call anymore.
right,
When that day comes, that's a conversation that is certainly well worth having.
Yeah.
But until that day comes, you're not gonna gain traction.
Right, we had a conversation about the ladder truck, right? And there was no interest on their part, to share a ladder truck.
So to explore that one step further, what do you think the timing is on that? If you were to throw a guess at the wall?
Oh, I
2
think it's
years,
within-
3 years, 10 years?
Oh, I think it's probably within 5 years.
Yeah.
5 to 8 years. I'm saying that's, it's a reality, so it's, the time to start conversations is coming now.
Yeah. Let's do
Because
some,
it'll take that kind of time to get people to come around to it.
But why not?
And we're in a good position to start those conversations because of the chief, his relationship with that department. So,
It's one of the, since call firefighters a response.
But that's, why not propose,
here's where, yeah.
what is it called when the town has some call and some,
combination department.
sure, combination, like, I would think proposing that model to Essex now would be maybe even, maybe more digestible than, you know what I mean? Like, they do have some call firefighters, right? And,
Well, they have,
and,
so, but right now they're not, right now it's working 100% rely on call. And so they don't want to entertain a combination department yet.
because that would be.
right, but what I'm
increase.
saying is financially, economically, and clearly they are frugal. I would think they would rather digest a combination department than a just 100%
Yes.
full-time, right? Cause,
Yeah, but they just don't want to hear it from us.
no, I know, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, I don't know, whenever that day
When the
comes,
tipping
or
point comes, yes.
propose a
I'll-
combination one,
Yeah.
because they'll still have some call firefighters, and hopefully we'll have some, and then you look at that big picture and you say, okay, thered be this one master department that would have, I don't know, 12 call or 15 call, when you combine the two, plus the full-time, and that, you know.
Yes.
Maybe a safer grant is the way to get there too.
It could be.
Lighten the blow.
But we flip issue, instead of waiting for the flip, you anticipate that.
I mean, there are, you know, quite a few other towns, typically bigger than us, although when you combine the two population, like, you know, Ipswich, I think, is a combination fire department, you know,
And they were like
Litchfield,
11 or 13,000.
Middleton, and I'm just saying, when you add our population and Essex, right, that's 9,000 or something.
Ipswich about 15.
What's Ipswich?
Yeah, they're over 10. They're in
Um,
double digits.
Right, like,
They're almost on the issue of being in a small city, or big town.
Okay, what else?
Okay, so then, a few questions.
Okay.
So the assistant in the town clerk is part-time. And whether or not that needs to be boosted.
You might not need to boost it if you didn't have so many rules.
There's one request there.
Yeah.
We worked at, communications person, that's like a very full plate at a part-time position. So that's another possibility of needing to boost that to full-time.
What is the part-time? Is that 20 hours a week? Or-
So we
Supposed to be.
we edged it up to 26.
Okay,
this year. Dropped in some of the hours of the grants.
oh, okay,
We swapped out some hours.
okay.
what does Essex have for town clerk, you know? Like, meaning, do they have a full-time or part-time or?
Yeah, full-time, yes.
I mean, I think I will say this, one of the thing about the town clerk's office is certainly over the last couple of years, we've seen more public,
It's a significant increase.
what is it called, public
Public records request.
requests, which I think is time consuming.
Well, that was the police, Chief Fitzgerald was commenting on that. On the requests that come through there.
Yeah, so,
Don't towns get to charge for those or?
yes, but you still need the people to do it.
So, and you can only charge, the maximum you can charge is 2,500.
Is there a way to have an independent contractor do that, or a service, or somebody like that? I mean, rather than having our dedicated employees who have all the benefits, can we farm that out some?
I think that's really hard to do because it's,
So is it-
Find some intimate knowledge of the material and what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Where they're filed.
it's not like we have one centralized repository with all the information that a third-party contractor just go into the system and extract what's needed.
So again, not looking to solve or, decide these tonight.
I mean, I think communications is an issue. I think that we're trying to get more stuff up on the web. On the, and I think
And
it's
the more we
important.
get up on it, the fewer
Right.
public records requests.
Exactly.
You can say it's on the website.
Right, so I kind of see
So-
the communications as important,
Mhm.
maybe an efficient way to spend
Sure, yeah.
money.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, you've got a workforce of 70 people and a customer base of 6,000 or more. You know,
Well,
I
and
mean, look at it from that point of view. I mean,
I look at the ZBA. You know, all of our stuff is not on the web.
right,
So everything has to be sent out to the members of the board. They don't have any place to go. If somebody from the public asks for it, they don't have a place to go, whereas if you had a communications person with more time, maybe they could automate a lot of stuff. Could easily be automated. It's kind of where I'm coming from. Anything else?
So the last possibility, and I'll stop here. We have talked over the years about an assistant town administrator. And again, my clock is also ticking. And so. Again, that might be in combination with some succession. Possibility. And so we do have we do spend money, we outsource the HR, but we have an HR person, so that can be folded into assistant TA.
Do you see
So
position like a, it's not entry level, it's like a 5-year, 10-year experience person? What do you think it is?
ideally, you hire someone with experience.
Yeah.
But they're usually greener than. Yeah. Maybe a department head who wants to move up.
Would it, before that's done, would there be a definitive training plan
Yes.
put in place so that the person could learn things a piece at a time?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, because I think that would be important.
So, I mean, aside from that, we do have a few folks who might be interested
Okay.
in my position, and
Yep.
we've already started in on some training, and webinars, and
Yeah.
we can start partaking in and getting a better flavor, and I'm trying to bring them in on some reviews, and they can experience it firsthand.
So then at some point you'd have to make a decision as to who it would be and then backfill in that department.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's no easy path.
Yeah.
Have we found a planner? Or that wasn't one of the requests of full-time town?
Well, we already have budgeted for a full-time. plan.
So that's not a new request,
That's
that's
not a new
an existing unfilled.
It's a good thing. I feel unfortunately our lead candidate.
Didn't accept.
Well, that's too bad. Where did they go somewhere else?
They're staying where they are.
Can you say what time?
No,
I don't think-
not.
Aren't we,
I'm sure we don't have a super good name in the planning department area.
And the DPW feels like they're adequately staffed.
Yes.
I know we've talked in the past a little bit about regulations and enforcement. And I don't know if that's still a topic on the table, and my recollection was we were like 50% of where we wanted to ideally be on the enforcement front. And I'm thinking of like ZBA and Concom and all of these things, not law enforcement.
Oh, you mean
And
enforcing decisions?
like building inspector
yeah,
type
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And are we feeling like we're okay there or not okay or future?
So we went back and forth on this one.
Yeah.
And came down deciding that if the new planner would have a more supervisory role in overseeing to make sure that decisions are being followed through with. Let's try that versus going full-time with the building.
so keep the half-time person, but supplement with our town planner's role?
So again, that was pros and cons, and that was a bit of a coin toss. Came down on the side of trying it that way, keeping with the halftime building inspector.
I mean, I'm not trying to be difficult, but is that realistic to expect that a town planner, because when I think of what a town planner does, I think of a very different set of duties and responsibilities than a building inspector. I like that, but maybe I'm wrong, or I don't know.
Well, so a director of planning typically has that responsibility. So to the different models, but a common model is having the building inspector's office under the wing of development.
It wasn't that many years ago that we put the building inspection department under the assessor. Which I'm not sure makes a lot of sense. but-
Yeah, I'm not coming at it so much as who goes under where or what department, I'm just saying, when I think of what a building inspector does, I think of someone who's out and about, they're driving around town and they're. Right, they're checking on,
But I don't
you know,
think,
additions that were built and
No.
permits pulled and a town planner, I think of someone. No offense, is more in an office and then on a computer and they're going to planning for meetings.
I think where we have a little bit of disconnect is when decisions are made by the planning board or the ZBA. Making sure that those decisions are well communicated and understood by the building inspector, so that he knows all the details. So the planner typically provides the staff support to those adjudicatory boards, the ZBA and the planning. And has that good knowledge of what those decisions.
and so that the people reviewing the building permits are looking in detail at what the decisions include. Right?
Okay, I mean, it's
Because
just,
that's
you
missing.
know, you're telling me, which could be the case, that you're saying it's a communication issue, right? That, you know,
But
these
it's
things
part of
get
it.
decided at ZBA and whatever, and then it's just not communicated. Okay.
Gets lost in the woodwork very easily, so you need somebody in charge who maybe is putting in more procedures to safeguard.
Oversee, so that you sure that nothing is slipping through.
Right. Because stuff gets lost after a number of years. And somebody will complain about something and they'll take action and then nobody does any follow-up and the same thing is occurring again and the neighbors get tired of complaining.
But I don't know exactly where the issue is, I don't know exactly the fix,
Yeah.
I just know that there's an issue. Like,
Yeah.
I know it personally, I know it from hearing you talking, like.
Yep.
Install a pool and you'll find
all I
out.
Well, I think it's new regs coming along and how they're integrated into the whole system and who follows them. And I think it's also the existing stuff that's been around for a long time. I mean, you know, having filed for certain things and delivered literally 200 pages of copies for a group. You know, taking the hours to do that and driving up and down a particular road and seeing stuff that's just egregious. Somewhere along the line, you say, all right, you know, where does this all land? You know, it's not fair.
That's a problem. Okay. Now, and at some point, you were also talking about changing the position of some of the assistants. Do I have that right or wrong?
Do, and that's, to help us with that decision, we really need the comp study.
Okay,
That was part of the
Okay.
motivation for the comp study, to see if our sort of second tier
is paid properly.
is paid.
Okay,
Whether or not that needs a reexamination.
so it's really not responsibility issue as much as a pay issue. Okay, that's what I,
Do part-timers generally get more per hour because of they don't get benefits? Like the pension and
No,
that doesn't.
what do we pay? What's our lowest pay per hour?
was paid per hour?
Yeah, not counting DPW, but in the office.
Uh,
What's our lowest hourly rate is what I'm questioning. Yeah.
4 or 5.
Okay. And I think that when we do the budget, it used to be when we did the budget, we used to see the salaries. And we don't tend to see that anymore, and I think when we do the budget this year, that might be helpful.
We have a new personnel module.
Oh, good, okay,
So yes, that'll be more explicit.
because we kind of lose sight of it, you know.
Yeah.
You also want to make sure that town employees are being paid a livable wage, I mean, you know.
So that's the challenge here with this plan of replacement.
Yeah.
Trying to get staff.
Yeah.
So
How much have we allocated?
Okay.
What did we allocate?
What's the pay range?
90 is what we got budget.
That's full time.
Yes.
90 plus benefits, right?
So is this a role that's in high demand? Not enough people to fill it, like around this region, Commonwealth, Mass?
It's, I mean, right now, every position seems hard to find.
Yeah,
Um,
it's interesting.
It's just.
That's true in the business world too. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
challenge, yeah. Too many
And-
people retire.
We typically compare ourselves to smaller communities, but we're competing against the bigger communities. So it's a challenge.
So is our competition like Beverly, Danvers, Peabody, Ipswich? Or is our competition like Chelmsford, Boston, Arlington, Methuen, big city?
Certainly some of the outer ring, the 1.8 communities. For sure, I wouldn't go too far in
Yeah.
to say competing directly there.
Yeah.
Certainly,
So it's towns that have populations of below like 50,000 people, types like small cities,
Yeah.
big towns.
Yeah.
Like, I would think what cities, like true cities like Boston, Cambridge, Worcester have for a planning department is like they.
That's totally different.
Right, I mean, it's.
yeah, no, there's no comparison there.
Yeah,
Yeah, you've got very large departments.
So that may be another opportunity for combining with Essex. And- But,
Yeah, they had a very part-time
Right,
kind of,
part-time, like half, 20 hours.
no, I think it's 10 hours. It's just-
I'm just not sure how much we want to combine with
I
Essex,
agree.
given our challenges with the school system.
The
I don't
the
wanna
goals are pretty
subsidize.
different. Our
Yeah.
planning needs are pretty different than where
Right.
they are.
They don't have
They're looking
zoning.
at a lot of open space. We're looking at shoehorning things into it.
Right. Okay. Anything else, Greg? I think I saw something somewhere that maybe the warrant is considering maybe some financial articles. I don't know where I saw it,
Yes, yes.
probably social media.
Um, So, not a definite yet about a special town meeting, but I think it's likely. On November 13th. So, again, some possibilities for few financial items. One, if depending on how you want to pay for the fire union contract, whether you wanted to take that out of reserve. Or do you want to do a supplemental?
What
appropriation?
percent did that come in at? Increase?
It should mirror the other contract.
Oh, okay, so it was similar, okay,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same.
okay, okay.
So sorry, what's the choice again? Take it out of
Take it
reserve,
out of your reserve.
like the FinCom reserve,
The FinCom reserve,
okay,
it's already been appropriated,
or
or do a supplemental appropriation. That's for improvements.
and what's the dollars roughly?
I don't have it in my head, but it's around 10. Not a huge number. Yeah, it's just. There is some interest on the select board to, they haven't finalized the discussion on this, but perhaps allocating dollars to do the geotechnical
That's
study.
what I saw for
on
DPW.
the DPW Neil compost site,
Mhm.
to see if that is a suitable site, just to keep that ball moving. I don't have a number on
You're talking School Street,
it.
Yeah.
Do some borings, find out where the ledge is.
See whether it's feasible.
If you were to do wild guess, is that a like 50K type thing or is it a 200K
I was
type
gonna
thing?
ask like 10, 100 or a million.
I'm gonna say it's in the 50K range, that'd be my guess.
Mhm.
$55-year-old that.
If it's a billion, that's a different story.
Order of magnitude. That's what we're looking for.
Um,
I'll ask this sidebar, what's our FinCom reserve? I know it's somewhere between 150 and 200.
What do we put in this year, 180? Last year it was 210 and this year was lower.
I think it was, I
180.
think we dropped it in times, so, someone was on.
Okay.
It's in that, area.
Yeah.
I probably have it here, which I might find by the end of the meeting.
I can look it up, I do have it.
But a bigger fish would be the Pleasant Street relining of the pipe. That's like $1 million out there that's gonna just drop to the reserves. We're not gonna do it.
Yeah, what's he planning to do instead of Pleasant Street?
Walker Street,
Oh, Walker Street.
He
Okay.
said that they got.
Walker and
they
a
got
couple of
built for
other,
it.
couple of other small.
It's, what's, I guess, the lounge. It's done recent projects.
Okay,
So we're gonna spend it on. pipes.
something else, yeah. Maybe Dennis.
We had a good break. We had a good break downtown this weekend.
Yeah, we haven't seen that in a while, which is encouraging, but
Sounded like it was a small pipe, according to Chuck.
it looked like they went right to the.
It was the supply. It must have been the tap.
I had a huge problem with the water in my house because I made the mistake of, I turned off the wrong lever trying to shut off the irrigation system, I shut off the main. And oh my goodness, the amount of rust that came through. So, geez, where's that coming from?
It's just sitting there waiting to come out.
You know, somebody who, to go off toward
Yeah.
Brookwood, who has a water filter at kind of the end of the line, and he changes the cartridge every quarter. And he's brought them to Chuck, he says, help, what about this? And
The water on Bennett
It's
is
just
much worse
the
than it
world
was
we're
on
in.
School Street, that
Still
that
pipe,
much I know,
still pipes.
and that was like 10 years ago.
Right.
Okay, anything else financial for us? Greg? We're still waiting, I think we're still waiting for the 6:30 report. We usually get a quarterly report and we didn't get the one for 6:30. Did anybody see the one for 6:30? I didn't.
Just sent out the end of year report to me.
No. We haven't seen it. I mean, we talked,
Oh,
when,
she thought,
no, the last time we talked to her, things weren't finalized. And I haven't received any report from her. I'm pretty sure
okay. Oh, so, yeah, but
if she sent it, she needs to resend it apparently.
I think she thought she sent it, so.
Okay, yeah,
We'll follow up.
Okay.
But she sent it to me today because I needed it. I
okay.
couldn't find it, so. I can.
Greg, are there other items on the warrant, just broad brushstroke that are? I guess. Things coming onto the warrant, other
So-
than these.
So could well be a zoning article.
Yep.
There,
But the Monday night, they decided not to put one on that they were considering.
say they decided not to, so.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It did pass 4-2, yeah. Yeah, I think it did, yes.
This was just zoning.
This was changing the detached units to allow not just employees, but others.
Yeah, there may be an item related to building. I don't know more this.
Mhm.
Do we have a rough idea how much it costs to put on a special town meeting?
I think the town meeting costs in the range of 3,000 to 5,000.
Yeah, I asked Diane once, before we had to have that special one for the school, and it was much less than I expected.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
I feel like 4 is the number we've kicked around for a long time.
I don't know.
That's what's shown up in the budget, because we do 2 now a year instead of 1.
Yeah. I don't know. It's
So the big input was the stupid clickers, right? Isn't that the biggest dollar?
I think it's chairs and labor and.
It's chairs in the sound
Rentals.
system.
Yeah, the sound system is big.
You do pay the towns. We can check in.
That's, okay, that's what I'm remembering, yeah, they used to cost a lot, like 15 grand or something.
Not that much.
We leased them at for 1 year or something,
We all of them were bringing in
Yeah.
their staff. which
until
was
they
pretty
self-destructed.
expensive. We took that over.
Okay, liaisons. Maura, do you have any update on the schools? I think we
No,
already
I-
talked about the schools.
I think we're all up to familiar date with where we are with that.
Tom, do you have any update on fire? No? Mike, please.
I met with Chief Todd this morning, high level, good shape, he's gonna send, I just asked for like super high level, 30,000 foot, just year over year. Just want to see what
Yep.
that looks like, so he's gonna send that, but I didn't write down the exact numbers, but he said, fiscal year to date, whatever, regular salary was looking good, overtime was good. What do you say, we're gonna have to replace one car, and not surprisingly, police cars cost more now than they did, 3 years ago, right? It's not a surprise,
He likes his new electric car.
He does. Pretty excited about those.
two big ones was, and I'm not gonna get the number right, but he said there's some bill going through the state legislature. Cause one more place for me to be mad at sitting on tons of cash is the state, right? They're sitting on tons of cash, and so. They're putting forth a bill that will, do grants specifically for police and fire buildings.
So basically similar to the school.
Okay,
Like an SBA, but for.
So
but for
MSBA,
public
except for
safety.
public safety.
But, and again, I think both of us have to look into the details, but of course, I went right, to what percentage, right? Cause on the school, it's like a small percent, and,
It's like 35%.
oh, okay, I thought it was much higher.
But the questions are always, what are the requirements? Right.
So, anyways,
okay.
there's that, and then. I threw out this one, I like throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing if it sticks, but, I belong to the Hamilton Wenham Rod Gun Club, and of course, Manchester has. Its own range, right across, and I was just like, well, what do we do with other towns in the, you know what I mean, do we, and I guess we have some informal where we let, the other abutting towns. Kind of use it, and I was like, what do we charge, and. Get rounds, we get free rounds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm not looking to gouge anybody, but like, that's a true gem. There's a lot of cities and towns that don't have that. Like, I got a friend, he's a Marblehead cop, lives in, Beverly, and like, he's gotta go here to do his, you know what I mean? Like, and even Chief Todd was saying, like, some cities and towns have to send their guys to Devon's to go qualify and stuff. So, I think there's an opportunity there to, without gouging, make some money. He even said, I was surprised at this one. He said even you let Gloucester use, it, which surprised me because Gloucester, to my mind, has their own right next to the Cape Ann Sports Arena.
But they had a huge problem
Right.
because the neighbors complained. Yeah. They didn't want it in their backyard, so what if all of Manchester can hear the Manchester one?
Does that
You know what it is?
prohibit lead, or do they allow you to use lead bullets?
I don't know the Manchester police one.
They use fake stuff, don't they?
Cause it's in the watershed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
They had a problem on Cape Cod with that,
oh,
the lead leaching into the water.
So anyway, that's a gem, and I just think that's an opportunity. If you think about, if the police department has to send their guys to Devon's, like.
Yeah,
Like
that's a real cost.
there's a real
Hey,
cost,
big
right, the
bucks,
travel and
yeah.
the hours and
So- So is this something that like we could use some CPC funds for and up the quality of that thing a little bit and then charge it out?
Sure.
I mean, I'm
Do we
not
need
sure
to
it
up the
falls into
quality?
historic preservation, but
do we need to up the quality?
I'm just wondering if you make it more attractive, you can.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta spend money to make money, right?
It's very basic.
Oh, okay,
It's more, so, you know, spend a little money,
Put a
but make
little-
more money,
put a
right?
shed and a roof there or something, you know, so you can stand in the rain. and do
Used to
your
porta
work.
potty.
Observation tower.
We have
So
enough structures already.
We have reduced the use of it significantly in terms of which departments can use it because of the complaints of the members.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Really?
Who's complaining?
See, that surprised me because you got the Hamilton Wenham right there, so it's the same, we
Well, people probably can't distinguish between the two, I don't know.
agreed, but.
We may be getting blamed for some of
Hmm.
that noise. I don't
So our
know.
nearest neighbors are our nearest affected are probably on Pine Street.
Yes.
That's a long way away,
Right.
like a mile, no,
Mm.
3/4 mile, half a mile.
I can hear it at my house.
Really
Yeah, just
interesting.
It travels. The
if
sound
if I'm
travels.
outside, I don't hear it in
Like
your house,
128
but.
On a damp day where there's a lot of water in the air, you hear things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But no, I can hear the too, and I haven't heard it much recently. Maybe it's because we're not using it as much, but it's only if I'm outside.
And again, they're not using,
Who
you
cares?
know, Sunday mornings at 6 AM and,
Well,
you know, I mean,
I mean, it's not,
it's not a big deal.
my sister has a house in Pennsylvania and she lives across the creek from a police academy. And they have live training for, you know, all site situations and, oh my goodness, that noise, that's super, and they're shouting at each other and. And
We used to live in
they have an
Newbury,
artillery
right-
range, oh
right
yeah,
across
that's
the
loud.
street was the Martin Burns wildlife area, and they had a shotgun range and a regular police range.
Yeah.
And regularly you'd hear pop, 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 and then every so often you hear. It'd be like, all right.
But if you know what it is, who
stay away from
cares?
that.
You know,
I'd rather,
it's like the train.
right, I'd rather hear those sounds, like I can hear them too, in the distance than my neighbor using the leaf blower, I mean.
Yeah, right.
That's I'd rather, right?
I'm just surprised that people are complaining, it's pretty far away.
I mean, I talked to Todd, he mentioned like one guy, he said it sounded like one crotchety guy that complains every night, like it didn't sound like there's a high volume.
It's not a deluge of complaints.
Right.
Bose, you know, speaker system.
Just to your point, the people that are hearing that live on Pine, but they're on this side of 128, which means the traffic on 128 has to be more mind numbing than.
Yeah.
3/4 of a mile away shots now and then.
We done with police? Do you have an update on DPW?
Yes. So they've been updating the facilities master plan. It's not sure whether select board will want them to go through another review of it before finalizing. So, but it's close, sounds like. And I didn't get into the details with them, just forwarding it. Talked about he mentioned that there's a new bill for the state, at the state level for a building authority for public safety buildings. So in the same way that there's a building authority for schools.
That's what he was talking about too.
I guess,
Oh, I'm sorry.
just went through this.
So
I was
it's
thinking about what I was gonna say.
it's DPW and public safety is what you're saying, or is it just public safety?
Yeah, I think it's all.
Okay,
I didn't realize it was.
But the impact on, and so, you know, with the schools at least, as we know, I mean, that sort of hints that there's some public funding for those kinds of projects, but then they also put limits and stipulations on
Strings attached.
sizes and, you know, configurations and things like that. So, we may not be able to get a red barn.
What did, if you just know, I don't know, Essex, what did they spend for their public safety law?
20 or 30 million?
I think it's, they hit 30.
Definitely.
And it has problems already.
It's
There's
really
problems.
big.
It has problems already?
Healing something,
Roof is-
insulate, stuff holding it together coming out, I don't know.
And it was just finished, how long ago?
2 years old.
2 years.
Right down the name of the GC and the building.
Yeah, always.
So we
So
don't use it.
Rockford's, you know, in the middle of building their new DPW. So,
Hmm.
It's right on each one.
That's one big last year.
I mentioned the pipe project. Reese was the low bid.
How does that work? Is if you have a pipe burst, you call up like 4 vendors and say who can do it for less and who's available? Or are you on like retainer and they come and do it?
So we go out for bid for emergency repairs
Okay.
and we pick one vendor to do that. So it's good news for us. So yeah, so the other day on Beach Street when there was a break.
Mhm.
we called in.
They weren't.
You know, our guys are with them to the.
I was talking with somebody who was in Plymouth, New Hampshire, and she was saying they do work there. Or bidding projects there, which is really interesting because they're using Massachusetts rates in New Hampshire. And I think of like Proc Marine trying to move their market, they're coming in the right direction.
Yes.
I would think Bernice going there is
Yeah, I think that-
problematic.
Yeah.
But that's what she was saying.
Maybe
She
they have
said-
separate crews.
Well, she said a lot of the trucks had Massachusetts plates. It's
Yeah,
kind of
that's
interesting.
the wrong way.
Yeah, it's not
Usually you see
smart.
in New Hampshire, guys coming down here.
Just a data point.
So Chuck said he's got a meeting with a PFAS consultant relative to what would need to get done up at Gravelly Pond. And then what would follow that is because that's already been done for the Lincoln Street well. So that will follow is some sort of life cycle cost analysis to see whether it's worth having combined PFAS treatment, ergo a pipe that goes up over Pleasanton up to Pine Street facility, or whether the PFAS treatment would be separate for each.
Two something.
Yeah. You mentioned the Pine Street project is pretty much done. I've seen it getting some use. I asked him about the work for the wastewater treatment plant. We talked about some capital work, not sort of long range, harden the facility or what do we do next kind
The
of a thing.
$3.5 million bit.
Right, the 3 to 4 million bit and so I said, try to keep it under 4 million, but 3 million would be the minimum threshold we're looking for. Working to see where the best place to draw the line is relative to things that they would include in that bucket versus things that they would sort of push off to take care of this sort of O&M work.
Heard a thought on the earlier on the Central Street culvert. That perhaps the window in the summer would be better to construct rather than in the fall.
Oh, we have so much more traffic.
Looking at it from a resident's perspective, the traffic at the corner of Pleasant School is the worst corner in the whole town.
Oh, when school's in session.
Yeah, and it's September. And you know,
So we're constrained by various
yes,
critters in the
but
water.
there's 2 windows of shad spawning or whatever, and one, I think you can jump in June and you can jump in September. But you have to be out by or some point, but
I guess my concern is that the September to February window is much longer than the June through August window. And it seems like if you're only working on it, and it's actually mid-June, it's like 2.5 months. Seems to me that it would spread out the project over a much longer period of time, which would be very disruptive,
well,
in my opinion.
it's not a big bridge. I think 2 months is plenty of time to do it. But
It's optimistic.
yeah, well, there's different costs associated, with it, but it might not be such a bad idea to consider. I mean, there's more overall traffic in the summer, but it's less
No, you haven't,
parents rushing to.
you don't see Central Street in the summer. You have all the boat traffic coming with boats on trailers and you're coming from Crocker to the boat ramp and from Manchester Marine to the boat ramp, and you're
There's
gonna
no good
send
time
them
to do it.
all
That's-
around Pleasant
There's no good,
Street.
there's no good.
There's no good time, but I was just wondering if you might wanna look at that. It's just seeing if there's another window, just to have an alternative. Because you would avoid any winter delays as well with that, which would be very nice, because you have all kinds of weather delays. in the winter. Or you could.
Right.
That's a good
Anyway.
point. If you went over on the time, if you started in the summer and you went past the projected time, you still got months to work, whereas.
Yeah.
You start in September, you're gonna hit
Yeah,
a hard
that's true,
stop.
yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. Minutes.
Did you want a CPC update? Oh,
Sorry, yes, you're not on the list, I'll add you to the list, yes,
We,
please.
we had a meeting, I think I reported briefly on it, but I didn't say that. The state percentage at the 1.5% CPC tax is gonna be 20%. So it's down even more. Even though they're strapped with cash, you know,
Well, they don't have the houses being sold to get the money from the registry. Cause it's a tax on every sale, it's registered,
well,
That's
okay.
their funding source, yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, that was, and we actually are having a meeting tomorrow to kick off the new grant application season. Going over the rules of what's allowed, what isn't. So that's gonna be on board tomorrow. And it sounded like the rotunda isn't gonna need to be under the CPC, that it's funded with other grants. Or are we s-
With any luck, I mean, we don't know
Yeah,
for sure.
We don't know, okay, so we
There are a
don't,
couple of funding sources that we're optimistic about.
I don't know if there's anything any message I should deliver from the finance committee tomorrow.
No antique fire.
They mentioned that they wanna keep going for it, and I said, well, but you don't have a place to put it, it's like, that we couldn't get past that. Hurdle. But anyway, anyways,
So one thing, we've talked about this before, but is how much can you carry over from one year to the next with CPC? And it seems like there's a sort of spend it sometime approach,
There's no requirement to spend in.
right?
You can sit on it as long as you want.
So, I mean,
Last year they were in a spending mode.
the
Right.
last meeting, they went through all what was used and what's available, and they are
Right.
looking at that. It's
I mean,
similar
I
to the
think
way we did it.
there may be some advantage to holding off on things for a year or two or three if the taxpayers are comfortable with that and
Build them.
doing more as opposed to trying to find a way to
Piddly.
spend it, you know, like
Instead of the little piddly projects,
signage and other things, maybe.
look for bigger stuff.
Well, one thing I was thinking of is, you know, the Sweeney part of the reason we were gonna do Pine Street was as an offset during Sweeney Park. But the Pine Street really isn't set up for baseball at all. So we're probably gonna need to do something, to do some temporary baseball type stuff. Which, you know, might look at Mascoma Park, just for the window while they're doing.
I was talking to somebody whose kids use Mascanoma Park and I was kind of saying, doesn't it all need rebuilt or something? And he basically said, no, it just needs graded.
It's.
Yeah. Oh,
It
that
needs
it's
another
not-
foot of soil.
It's not major work that needs to be done, it's just hasn't been maintained over the years. And of course, it sometimes floods from the high tides. I saw ducks swimming there one day.
Yeah,
It has bicycles on it, kids,
Yeah.
and, you know, probably a car or two in a carnival, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of,
carnival coming.
there's a lot of usage of that
It's also
surface.
by the sea, and drive up it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I would like to see Mascanoma used more.
Well,
It
we might
stresses
wanna
me that it isn't used very much.
Upgrading that until.
Okay. That it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Minutes, If we have them, we don't know, so there's no minutes. Okay, now we have upcoming meetings. And Maury wanted to make sure that everyone got meetings on the calendar so that we were all in sync. So on my notes, I have that on, let me get my calendar up, on 10/25. Which is, yeah, 10/25. We weren't gonna have a meeting in October until 10/25. And on 10/25, we were going to start the capital budget. And then we were gonna meet on November 8th. Again on the capital budget. Because we thought we needed 2 meetings for that. And then I thought we were aiming to have a joint meeting with the select board on the 29th. To go over the whole capital budget. Yeah, that's a Wednesday. If they can do that, because we didn't want to do the 22nd because it's right before Thanksgiving. We didn't think we'd have very good attendance.
What was the,
8.
On the 25th,
Saturday,
10:25.
oh, sorry. 10/25, we were gonna start cap,
Right, but also we need to reserve time to talk about the warrant.
okay. 10/20 capital and warrant, okay. And then the town meeting's supposed to be the 13th.
They have to do a little finishing up on the 8th, but
You mean 11/13,
Yes,
What'd I say?
10.
Oh, sorry.
It's a little sooner.
be free.
So then, when do you think? In December. We're going to have the joint meeting on the operating budget. The 13th,
so what are the dates?
6, 13, and 20. Well, I can't do 20 because that's CPF. Yeah, 6 or 13. When does select board meet, on the 1st and the 3rd?
4th and the 18th,
Yeah,
so the 18th be a possibility,
Monday the 18th.
so the preliminary budget presentation.
So this would be 11/18.
12.
12/18, I'm sorry.
That work for people? Okay, I guess that's okay, Kurt.
Did we start the operating thinking that go with 2.5% increase for the school? Based on what Essex has said they can afford.
No, I think we just do our budget and not worry about the school. I mean, I think what we have,
Plug in our normal 3.5%.
I mean, I think what we need to see is to see the town's operating budget and what we need to spend to do the stuff we wanna do.
Right, well,
And then look at the impact on the tax rate.
yeah,
Instead of trying to cram everything into a tax rate.
so, because my thinking was, wouldn't that mean that we should do the operating before we do the capital?
No, because they're not ready to do the operating,
Right.
whereas
So
they're
we're just
ready
back
to do
to
the
it.
capital, and I was trying to make it not as heavy a workload in the winter.
You can do the other.
You can set it aside, say we think this is where it is, but it may have some tweaking.
Oh, no, it's gonna be final.
Just school is the big chunk, the right number.
I get something to do, don't you need something, don't you, for your operating
I'll
budget,
plug in the school number. Because I present a balanced budget to you.
meaning you're gonna plug in 3.5 assumption for the,
I'll do it a little lower, because if they come in at 3.5, our portion of it will be lower than 3.5. I'm gonna assume that they're gonna have a 3.5% budget,
Okay,
most likely. Think about this, but,
yeah.
and then, but because of the shift, that 3.5 is a 2.75 for us, something.
Okay, but end of the day, you're starting with 3.5 at the school and yeah, however that.
But I think what we do have to remember too is we do have excess levy capacity.
I know, yeah.
And I think that if our budget's tight, we need to start thinking about using some of it. Is kind of my sense.
Yeah, I'm anxious to have this constant
Right,
hears about this planar situation. So,
it's the comps that kill us. Okay, so then we'll start on the operating budget on January 3rd. And we do, one of the things we're gonna need to know, Greg, is based on the new date for the town meeting, when we need to have that FinCom report in and everything, so that tells us when we have to finalize. Get a little more breathing, but somehow it evaporates. It's a town meeting is the 22nd, right? Patriots Day is early this year.
May 22nd.
April.
for April, third Monday is the 17th.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's the
I'm sorry,
15th.
I'm sorry. Wrong year.
I was so proud of myself for being in the correct year.
Yeah. Why is she saying the 22nd? Yes, yeah, the 22nd.
22nd, okay.
Well, that's the.
Yeah, because wasn't school vacation week the 15th, week of the 15th? And so it was gonna be the fourth Monday, yeah, it was the fourth Monday. Yeah,
So that would be the 22nd.
It's the 22nd this year, after next year. So Patriots Day is the 15th.
yeah, it's early, seems to me. But no, it isn't, because that's tax day, yeah, it's always a tax day. So we always get an extra day to do our taxes.
It's usually like the 18th or something like that.
Yeah.
It varies, yeah,
No, but that, to your point, we usually get a couple of days beyond the 15th, right? The rest of the country gets the
Yeah.
15th and we get a day or two.
Yeah. not really use it, okay. So are people understanding our calendar through
Perfect.
January 3rd?
Can I just review signature on this? 10/25, 11/8, 11/29, 12/18, 11/3.
And the town meeting's 11/13.
Special and the annual.
And you got the 12/18, right?
Did I understand right that there's still a possibility there might not be a fall town meeting?
There is possibly, but I would bet that there is one. But this next month here. to justify it.
But like, at a bare minimum, you mentioned that firefighter contract,
Right.
10 grand, like. I don't know how everybody else feels, but like, if it's 10 grand, like,
Yeah. If you want to get it with our reserve, I'm happy to do
I
it.
mean, you pull that out of the FinCom reserve, there's no need to go to town meeting for that, right? It's the
I
same.
agree.
I'm fine with that. Anything else that anybody wants to bring up?
Question, I understand the water rates. We're pulling back from that recommended plan. Does that affect enterprise and? That
No,
change
because
the.
they went ahead with the normal increase,
Young increase, everything.
so that's fine.
But- Are they being impacted by the rain in the summer?
Well, so we had lower use.
Yeah,
Let's see the summer build totals.
okay,
compared.
they haven't come out yet.
Yeah. So we fluctuate every year because of
Right.
depending on what kind of rain season we have.
But we have 1 million in reserves at the price.
I think we were using some of them this
Yeah, for this year.
fiscal year 24.
Yeah. But yeah, the revenues fluctuate every year depending on season we have.
So operationally, there's no big change. It's just retreat from the plan to the existing pipeline.
And Mike, I don't think you were here at the meeting when we talked about changing the reserves target. And the article in the paper was incorrect. We did change it to 8%.
Okay.
Okay, paper said 10. We changed
And that's separate from the discussion we had quickly last time about maybe using some of the stabilization for OPEB? Or no, it's all connected.
It's kind of all connected, but the discussion we had is that if we were dropping down the target percent, we were gonna be way heavy on the stabilization side, and it made sense to use a portion of stabilization for something concrete that we thought 2/3 of the voters might accept. So that we didn't have everything in stabilization, it's kind of the conversation, right?
Anything in that direction makes me feel good.
Okay, anything else?
Quick one on revenue, I don't know what to call it, but the Airbnb tax or the, you know,
Short-term rental,
yeah.
Short-term rentals, how much is that bringing in?
Yeah.
It's not a lot. Um,
20,000 on an annual run rate.
I'll have to double check.
do we have anybody checking
Yes,
Airbnb and VBRO?
yeah, we just went through that.
Oh, good, okay,
We called about a dozen, of those dozen. The majority said, oh, I'll tweak my listing to say a minimum of 6 days stay. I think we're getting 3 or 4 applying for.
Okay, good. Fantastic.
Most participants in this program behaving as far as things like fire and access and other safety issues and.
For those that we license, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're not exactly,
Well, we're not licensing very many,
they're not,
How many licenses?
a handful.
yeah, they're not paying
Okay.
attention to the parking.
So they're not licensing because it's optional for the,
It's the, you only have to have a license if you're under 6 days stays. So everyone, not everyone, but the majority of people are having minimum of 6 day stays and they don't need a license from the town.
interest.
That's for our bylaw,
Yeah, right,
that's what the bylaw says.
and they're filling that greater than 6 days.
But we still receive the tax,
Oh, yeah.
the revenue from Airbnb and, or from the state, right, yeah.
Yeah.
It collects.
So regardless of whether it's a 2-day stay or a 7-day or a 10-day, if they're going through Airbnb, we're getting the tax.
Sorry, I realized I didn't need that conversation science.
But high level beach revenue.
Did good this year.
We don't, yeah, it wasn't part of our total because it's,
Right, I know, because
so I'm not sure if you can check with Michelle.
Could we have information on the beach tag situation and compare this year on the park stickers? Compare this year expenses with 0 revenue with 2019 when we had revenue and expenses. Because I think that we've increased the cost of those stickers a lot. I mean, the cost to process the stickers. We're not getting any of the revenue and residents are not able to park at the beach. Because you have all the kids with their cars going where they didn't have stickers before.
Because people didn't get beach stickers on all their cars.
Correct. And it's made a huge Huge difference. And then the other thing is like, you have to get your beach tags online, but you have to go to the town hall to pick them up. So what have we saved in the process? You might as well just go to town hall and pay for everything. I just, you know, so it would
A lot of
be,
people get their tags after the first day they go to games, they just get.
oh. But, you know, I just think that's an area we need to look at. Irrespective of where they're supposed to be located. That was the other thing on the warrant, Greg,
Oh, yes.
where the
bylaws,
beach
yes,
stickers do locate.
yes. I
Really?
did forget that.
Move them from the front windshield back to the rear windshield.
Why don't we
Like,
just
then
remove that whole thing out of the general bylaw?
Correct.
Exactly,
That's the
just-
proposal.
Okay,
Leave it up to the discretion
Yeah.
of the,
We'll just, yeah, I'll let the select board, you know, make that decision on an annual basis or whatever.
because I thought I read something that you were required to go in to buy them to town hall to get them too, but I could have been wrong on that. This is just something I saw on social media.
I don't think
It's
that's-
not-
Just because one person got a ticket because they didn't have their sticker on the right.
No, it was more than one person.
Or
And
we should also have the discounts to the. That'd be chaos.
okay, anything else? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
I,
Thank you.
It's theoretical, if we merged, right?
No.
So no, it's no small